All right, guys. Today we're talking about faith over fear and taking risks in your 20s and like how do we do that? I think it's a hot topic for right making decisions in your 20s. Should I move? Should I take this job? Should I take a big risk? I think oftentimes I know I've gone through that and weighed those options and it's hard to figure that out. And so today's guest is Raquel. She is 26 and she moved from Brazil to America by herself like a year and a half ago. And so through her story of what that was like and making that decision, not to mention just dropping a career that she got her degree in and making new friends and leaving home, all that stuff is baked into her story as you're going to hear. It's definitely a faith heavy episode. So if you're not into that, then this might not be for you. But even still, I think there's plenty of takeaways to pull from the conversation and the chapters of this episode, because I don't know if I trust Spotify or whatever you're listening to this on to give you the correct ones. This is what we got. Overcoming anxiety and needing to be in control, circumstances, challenges, and fears overridden by God's peace, not pursuing a career in the job you got your degree in, making friends in a new country, the highs and lows of moving away from home, tips for trying to make the perfect decision, and lastly, benefits of a relationship with God in your 20s. That's what we got for you today, and hope you enjoy it. A survey found that 72% of people who moved abroad in their 20s say it changed their life perspective for the better. The study also said that fear of regret is a more common motivator than ambition for people who make big moves early on in life. So that's what we're talking about today, and it kind of reminds me of another quote from my favorite book, Green Lights. Sometimes we have to leave what we know to find out what we know. And, I start there, but what we're really going to dive into today is we have Raquel here to share her story. She's from Brazil, moved here, and I'll let her tell her story. But it's definitely, I think, a quarter lifer problem that people are afraid to maybe take a risk and move states away, let alone you move continents. And so Raquel, can you shed some light on a little bit of your story of maybe going back to when you were in Brazil and maybe the college days of what that was like?
Yeah. So I graduated in biomedical science. It was 4 years, and I think growing up, I knew that I was gonna move, for a while. I didn't know how would that look like or when, but I was always very control freak. Like I gotta do it this way, and right after high school, I was like, I gotta jump into college and I gotta finish. And even like in college, I was like, okay, what should I do my master's in? And like planning everything. Uh, but then I was like, if I don't do now, then when? When I'm gonna do it? And I think I just started like to thinking about it and just like planning. And I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, you talk about that, like some of that anxiety, that wanting to control everything. I think no matter where you are in the world, I think anyone that's getting to that point of leaving college, going out into the real world, you have those, like, what am I doing? How do I do this? What you have to start making these real life
Yeah.
decisions. And so can you talk to me a little bit about more of what that, I guess, anxiety, that time period specifically kind of felt like, maybe towards the end of college, beginning of being out in the real world?
I think after I finished high school, I was very anxious and I struggled with anxiety. And in that time, I even went to therapy to treat and everything because it was getting out of control. Because I was trying to get like everything right and I wanted to choose the right career. And that was like searching a lot, like, what should I do? I knew I wanted to do something in like health and science, but I didn't know what. And then when I entered college, I was like, okay, I got this. And then like right after I start, anxiety got me through me, and I started feeling like I had to plan everything again. And I was thinking about, oh my god, I gotta apply for this company, even though I was like first semester. And so I was like planning everything, like so I gotta plan everything, gotta control everything, otherwise my life's gonna suck, basically. Um, and it was something that I dealt with through all my colleges in a year, through all my years in college. And it wasn't until I moved actually that I actually felt peace, and I was like, okay, it's good to stop and slow down and not control everything.
Yeah. So when did you move here? Like, how old were you?
I was 20. Wait, how old am I now? Uh, I was 25. No, 24. Yeah, I was
Okay.
24.
And how old are you now?
Again. How old am I? No, yeah, it was a year ago. Like, I'm
A
always
year ago?
26. So, yeah, a year and a half ago.
Wow.
So,
Did you speak English before?
I did, but I never like actually study. So it was more like music and books and movies, and I never had to speak English with anyone. It was just something that I was consuming, but I was never speaking. So was something that I was very shy about at first. Like now it's my language. Like I gotta speak it all days a week. So it was a struggle at first for me to just let go of, because I'm very perfectionist. So I was like, oh my God, I'm making this mistake and this mistake. And it was just hard to get into this place of being comfortable with speaking. But I knew English before.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say because it's very good for being here a year.
Yeah, thank you.
um, and so I want to like dive a little bit into the whole moving thing, because I think we've talked a little bit recently. I feel like the fact that you moved from Brazil to America, to me that seems crazy. And I feel like to maybe like people listening, like crazy in a sense of like that's scary. Like again, I've moved from home. I moved from Connecticut to Massachusetts, and that was like a little scary. And I think it is scary to leave your home and the place that the familiarity, all that stuff. And so even though you had this feeling, this desire to move to America, throughout your childhood and growing up, I think there's probably still some fear and anxiety and stuff that went along with actually making that decision.
Yeah. So I grew up like knowing that I wanted to move, but I also never thought that I was brave enough to do it, because it is a huge decision, and it's a move. And I prayed for a year actually before coming here, and it was my last year of college, and I was like, maybe I should do it now, like before I start and jump into my career and my master's. So I pray a lot, and I talk to my family a lot about it and my friends, and I was scared. I was so scared. I remember I make this pros and cons list, and it was not looking good, because for me, I'm like, okay, but what about career? What about money? What about like buying my house? And like all the stuff was on the cons list, because the only thing I could think about it that it was gonna be good coming here was like personal growth, and I was like, I can just leave this for another time, you know. I don't want to go just because of this. And it was like I knew I was coming. It was a feeling like how I'm gonna make this decision based on a feeling, you know. But I pray a lot, and I actually felt so much peace about it, which is crazy because I was scared, and from the way that my mindset of wanting to control everything, this was like I was going the opposite direction. But I felt so much peace, and I never been more sure about anything in my life than I was. I need to move here now, and it's something that I can explain besides Jesus. Like he was the one who put this in my heart, and he was like this peace that I was so sure about it. So even though I was scared at first, that peace calmed me down, and I was like, okay, I'm doing this, and I can do this.
No, that's beautiful, and it reminds me of this quote. Sometimes peace isn't the absence of fear; it's the presence of God in the middle of the unknown. And I feel like that's exactly what you're talking about. Like, again, I'm sure there's so many hoops, like logistically, that you have to also just jump through to make this move. Not to mention, yeah, moving changing, not changing, but leaving your home, leaving friends, leaving family, leaving, again, just the life that you know. So, what were some of those like challenges, struggles, obstacles, all the like logistics that led to kind of like those fears of moving, of making this huge jump?
It was a lot. I remember like making lists about it, and I had a boyfriend at the time. I just got a car that I had to sell it and everything, and it was like I had to put money into it. Um, I had to travel to get my visa, so it was like this big deal, and I was doing that at the same time that I was like finished college. So I was like writing papers and like doing all this stuff. I think it was a fear because I was thinking, oh my God, what if I just lose all my money because I put money into this, I sell my car, like, I broke up with my boyfriend like shortly after I got here and everything, and I was like just putting all my cards into this, and I was scared of like, what if it's the wrong move, even though I had this like peace and this sure in my heart. And when I got here, I was like, okay, this is the right decision. And but until I got into the plane, I was like, oh my God, it's a little scary. Like, I don't know if I'm making the right move. But
Yeah, so going back to like that stat I mentioned earlier of 72% of people that move abroad in their 20s say it changed their life perspective for the better. Fear of regret is a more common motivator than ambition, for making a big move early in your life. And I know I've definitely felt that. For you, was it that fear of regret, like later on in my life, am I going to regret not doing this? Or was it more of that ambition?
yeah, I think I was scared of regretting moving here and leaving everything behind. But I was also more fearful of not doing it because I was like, I have this opportunity now. I don't know if it's gonna come back, if I'm gonna have the chance again, and what if I didn't? Um, so I think the fear of regret was more of not doing it, not coming.
Yeah, I felt that definitely in my experience. Like I said, I moved from home and left my job and just moved a state away, but basically like left everything that I knew with being around home, friends, family, job, all this stuff. And I was like kind of similar to you, had more of a fear of regret, not of like moving, but more of kind of throwing myself in the deep end of career wise. Like I knew there was something that God had put in me that I hadn't really like discovered yet. And I felt that I needed to not be home. I needed to be somewhere else. I needed to change my environment, go somewhere else, and kind of just be on my own for a bit to really figure all of those things out. And I think it did. And God was with me the whole time. But yeah, I mean, I think there's real circumstances that it's like a scale of all these circumstances, like you talked about, the finances, the relationship, the money. What if it doesn't work? All these cons that you had on this list, and there's only a couple like pros. But I think what makes you still do it is like that fear of regret, but also more importantly, it is that peace that, you know, I have a relationship with God. He's really put this heavy on my heart. I don't know how this is going to work out, but I feel like God does that often of like, you're not going to know how, but you have to trust me to figure out the how, and just take that first step and I'll kind of lead you along the way. And that's kind of what you're talking about too, of as you started to make these moves, the doors just started to open.
Yeah, exactly. But I also feel like we are so trying to follow a path and following a model of what should we do, and we have this like huge like things burden our hearts, like, oh my God, I want to move, or oh my God, I want to invest in this, and we don't do it. We just because we want to follow this path. But maybe your life is supposed to be exactly what you feel like, exactly this burden that is in your heart. It's God putting there. Like there's a reason, and even though it doesn't explain like rationally, it's exactly what you have to do. So for me, it was this, like I had this burden in my heart, like for my whole life, to move and to do this. And I was always like putting away, like, oh, maybe after I finish high school, or maybe after I finish college, or maybe after my master's. And when? When I'm gonna like let this go? And now I look at my back to my life and I was, this was the right decision. Like I couldn't done it any other way. Like this is my life.
No, I love that because I think a lot of quarter lifers might be feeling that, especially like younger people. It's like, yeah, there's this path. It's college, it's get the job, it's relationship, it's get married. There is an order to things, and not following that order is feels like wrong in our heart. And I think having God to like kind of override that, I think it depends. This is why knowing who you are is so important, and having a relationship with God is so important because He will lead you to actually who you are and who He's called you to be and the purposes that He's called you to. But yeah, I think there's just a lot of fear that comes with that. But I think, did you experience, right, once you moved here, once you actually got through all these fears and all these obstacles, all these hoops you had to jump through to actually do it? Once you got here, you kind of mentioned this with getting on the plane. Was it like oh, really wasn't as bad as I thought?
I remember, so I'm super scared of heights. Like I hate going on planes. I hate it so bad. And I had to took two flights to come here. One from my state to a different state, and then there from New York. Um, so the first flight, it was awful. It was the worst flight of my life. I was like sweating. I wanted to throw up like the entire flight. I was crying, sobbing. It was awful. And then I got to the airport and I had to wait for like 7 hours to get my next flight. And I just sat there and I prayed and I felt like this peace, like so huge in my heart, that this girl that was going with me, I met her at the airport and she was like freaking out. Oh my God, I'm scared of heights. And I was like, it's gonna be fine. Like, what are you worried about? And it was weird because I'm not like this. I'm usually the person who's freaking out, and I was like helping her. And when I got here, I remember waiting to have a meltdown and to just like cry and be like, "Oh my God, I'm not home." But I just felt this amazing peace. Like the year of the preparation to come here was such a difficult year for me. I was like so anxious and I had like a lot to do. I was planning coming here, but I also have like papers in college to deliver and everything. And I was so anxious and like so angry all the time. And when I got here, I was like this peace. And I was like, "Oh my God, it was the right decision. Like I should listen to the Lord more because it was just peace." And of course that I struggle with a lot of stuff and like meeting new people, like starting a new life, but it was just so peaceful and I felt like so happy like never before. And I was like, okay, now I know for sure that I should have come. And it paid off for all the struggles and all the fear and all the anxiety, and to just let go of control and say like, let's follow what the Lord is telling me to do and let's see from there. And it was the best decision.
Can you speak a little bit more on, like, I've felt it, but what is that piece, like that feeling of God wants me to go this way when every circumstance, everything else is kind of telling me to go that way? Can you talk to me a little bit about kind of internally what that feels like? I'm sure there's a duality there, right?
I think we always struggle in a sense of, am I hearing this right? Is that the Lord or it's me? Um, but I think you can rely on the word. So, and you can rely on the things that the Lord puts in your heart. Like He's not a God that it's gonna make you struggle. He's a God that is gonna bring it clarity to you. So for me, I had a word before when I was a child. this guy told me, it's a crazy story, but story short, this guy told me like, the Lord is gonna teach you new languages and you're gonna move and all this stuff. So for me, I also had the word to base on, and I was like 11 when this guy told me that. So I remember like, oh my God, but that was so long ago. Like, is that like really the Lord talking to me right now? It's like, this is what he mentioned like years ago. Um, but it's also, I think if you don't try it and you don't obey and listen to the word, you're not gonna find out if it's the Lord speaking to you or not. But I also feel like when it's from the Lord, it's not usually it's gonna be perfect because nothing's perfect, but you're gonna feel peace about it. Even though you look at the situation, it doesn't look good, you're gonna still like have this peace in your mind, like, I'm sure I gotta do this because the Lord told me to do. You're sure that you listen to that. And for me, I think it's different for everyone. But for me personally, I pray a lot, and what I say to the Lord was, Lord, if you want me to do this, um, give me a sign. And my sign was I want my family to be in peace about this. And my family, like, my dad, my mom not so much, but my dad, he's very like, okay, you gotta follow this path, like go to college now, like and he was so peaceful about it. He was like, "You gotta do this. Just go. I bless you." And my whole family was like that. So for me, that was my sign. And I think you can just be open and honest to the Lord. Like, Lord, is you that it's putting this on my heart, and just pray and ask for signs and it's gonna look different for everyone. Maybe you can had a dream. Maybe you can just like a conversation with someone and you like feel this clarity. But for me, it was just this peace and all the signs that I asked for the Lord was like being delivered.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and it reminds me of Proverbs 16:9. We can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. And I feel like for me, what that's felt like is, um, no matter what, not what it's felt like, but what that experience has been like for me is, even though, because you're never gonna get 100% like peace, I don't think. Like, and what I mean by that is 100%, this is absolutely the right decision. There's no things in the way. There's no fear about this. I feel perfect about it. I feel like it's more of a, 60% I feel that, 40% I'm like, this could be a disaster. And when I've taken risks and overcome those fears in my own life, I kind of think about this verse of, no matter what you do, like, you can screw it up, you can get it wrong, and God will still make a way where there doesn't seem to be a way. Like, he will clean it up if you do screw it up. And so I feel like that takes some of the risk and the fear out of the decision to make a perfect decision, because to your point, yeah, there is no perfect decision. Um, but yeah, I think when you trust in him and you have a real relationship with God, it's like, all right, well, this is scary, but I know who you are, and I know that this could be so wrong, but I know you're going to direct my steps. And that's what I felt when I was, I mean, everyone that I talked to when I was trying to figure out, should I quit my job? Should I move? Should I take a massive pay cut? All this stuff. I was at a men's retreat and asking, like, people were praying over me, and I was asking people for advice. What do you think of this idea? What should I do? And even like those people, which are, other Christians, like, I'm expecting them to be like, yeah, man, go for it. They were kind of like, well, you might want to wait a little bit. You might want to, test a couple things, not do it yet, wait a little bit. And that's not what I wanted to hear. Like, I wanted to do it. And it was the last night of that retreat. And I felt this, I wish I remembered what the words were, but it was God kind of saying, you know, are you going to listen to them, or are you going to listen to me? Because I felt it so heavy on my heart that it was, you have to do this. Like, this is what God's calling you to do. And I remember asking in my head, like, are you sure? And it was the fastest, like, yes. Just the strongest, like, yes in my mind that, like, you're doing this. And then I remember I left, like where we were gathering inside to go out by the lake and sit there. It was night. It was by myself. And just ask again, like, are you sure? Because this is a big move. Are you sure? And it was again that, like, yes, like, absolutely. And at that moment, I texted two of my best friends and was like, guys, I'm coming. I'm moving up to, they were already there where I was planning to go coach and make this change. But yeah, I mean, I think there's so many obstacles that get in the way. There's fears, there's all those things. But I think when you have that relationship with God, He's going to direct your steps and He's going to make a way, even when you don't know how it's going to happen.
Yeah, but I feel like also we want everyone to understand what we heard, but the Lord is speaking personally to us. So that's your life. That's what the Lord put in your heart. Don't expect everyone to accept and to be thrilled about it and to understand the way you understand, because it's personal. Like everyone is gonna have a personal relationship with God and it's gonna have a like a personal life, and not everyone's gonna understand. Like my with me, like my family all supported and it was like good, but I know that that's not what happened in all the stories, and it's okay. Like it's still the Lord speaking to you, and you just gotta be faithful with what the Lord is telling you. And we think that to follow and to be obedient to something that the Lord told us, it's gonna be perfect and we're gonna feel great all the time because we had the direction from the Lord, and it's not. Like even I'm here and I'm sure that I have to be here. Um, there's days that I'm crying myself to sleep, and I just like I want to go home. Like I will walk to Brazil. That's how bad I want to go home. But other days I'm like, no, I'm sure, and it's the happiest I've ever been. And it's not constant. The only constant we have is Jesus. So on the happy days and on the crappy days, it's the Lord. He's the one who's gonna establish us. He's the one we have to be rooted on it. And it's not gonna look perfect, and it's beautiful, but it's not perfect.
No, that's beautiful. And yeah, what you just described is like what I go through on a weekly basis of like quarter life clarity, business, just being an entrepreneur of, yeah, man, like I go back to that moment of sitting there at the lake when I'm in the toughest times of, it's a nice reminder that although it might seem like this was just this whole idea, this whole going off and starting your own venture for you moving here, like it can feel like like it was a mistake, plenty. But I think you go back to those moments where you did have that conviction where God like did speak to you in some way, whether just in your heart or like with, a prophetic word or just something you hear in your head, like I did, just that yes. Um, I go back to those moments when times are toughest because God knows everything. God knows your path, everything, past, present, future. And so He knew when He was like, hey, man, go do this, like leave Brazil, go start your own business. He knew how hard it was going to be. And He was like, yeah, I still want you to go. and and that's where I think, again, checking down to that, reminding yourself of that yeah, it's not, life's not supposed to be this cakewalk. It's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows. And so I think that's just important to remember in all this. And it also reminds me, just this whole conversation of, kind of going back to your story a little bit. You don't need to marry the first version of your life. And so I think for you, like I do want to talk about the career aspect, and what I mean by that is you went to college for biomedical engineering, right?
Yeah,
And
biomedical science.
biomedical science. And so that was probably a whole thing too that you kind of alluded to earlier of, hey, I'm getting my degree in this, but guess what, guys? I'm going to move to America and not use it. Like that's another thing that people deal with of I got my degree in this, I have to get a job in this or else everything was a waste. I wasted money. I have to do this or else my parents are going to yell at me and all that stuff, and I've been through that. Can you talk to me a little bit about how that transpired and how like the challenges that came with that?
Yeah. At first, I was very scared about it because I thought, especially on the science field, that I couldn't have a break. I had to like study forever because like this health and science field is very a lot of stuff come up like every day, a lot of new research, so you got to be on top of everything. And so for me at first was a struggle like, oh my god, I'm going to stop a year. I'm already stopping for 2 years now. So but at first I was like, okay, 1 year I can do this. But it's also even I can work with that later on. I just can I can do my masters later on. It's my life is not over, you know. I still have hopefully years in front of me, so it's not a waste. And also like all the knowledge you gain doing a college, having a college degree, it's like no one can take that away from me. Even if I don't work on that field, I can still apply some of the stuff that I learn in my life. And it's great. It's perfect. It's never going to be a waste. But I feel like we plan everything. And even in college, when we're studying, it's so different to study something and then to work on it because, like, it's different. You don't see everything. And in your daily life, it's not going to look exactly like you plan. So and I think it was your story, right? You did your college, you got your degree, and then you start working on it, and you're like, yeah, I don't actually like that, and that happens, and it's okay. And I feel like we just want to control everything, but that's an illusion. Like we don't have control, and good thing we don't, because if we don't have, someone else have it, and the Lord have it, and for me it's like at first it was a struggle, but now I'm like I can work with that later, and I still have like so much time. And also I'm learning a lot of stuff now that I wasn't going to learn if I would be like working in biomedical science. And also I could have been now in Brazil like working on my field, or I could be unemployed because you know you sometimes apply to jobs and the door just closes. And so there's no way you can know like what your life would look like even though you follow every step. So I feel like we just have to let go of this anxiety and control in the sense of it's gonna be what it has to be. And you can plan, of course, you gotta plan and you gotta do the most you can. But it's not gonna look perfect, and it doesn't need to be perfect, and you don't need to follow this path that everyone's following. And that brings me so much peace. Like I have a degree, I have the knowledge, and if I want to use it, great, I will use it. But if not, okay, it wasn't a waste because I gained so much doing that.
Yeah, I mean every experience, no matter what, it's like the movie Slumdog Millionaire. Like every experience that you've gone through, you know, is leading you somewhere, and you don't know right now maybe what it was for or why something happened, but I think eventually time passes and you it shows up of like, wow, if I didn't do that or do this or have that experience. It's Steve Jobs um, took a calligraphy class that ended up being Apple fonts that we use today. And like, if he doesn't take that class, like, I'm not gonna say we don't have like Apple fonts, but you know what I mean. Like, it's at the time it doesn't seem that important. It's just yeah, it's something I did, but eventually it might be something that is really important for your life and maybe impacts others too. Um, and what do you remind me? What do you do now? Like we talked about, you're not using your degree, but what are you doing now?
Yeah. So now, I take care of two children, two toddlers, and it's so different than yeah than what I studied for. But it's so rewarding. It's hard, definitely hard, but I think it's just taught me a lot. And honestly, not just my job, but like moving here, uh, I learned about myself way more than I learned in the 24 years I was in Brazil. I learned so much more. I grow so much more, and I think I'm gonna use this for the rest of my life. Like one day I'm gonna be a mother, and I know I'm gonna be an excellent mother because now like I have the experience and I have like the daily life, and it's great. So you can learn something even though you're not in the field you chose.
Yeah, and I think, we talked, in just preparing for this episode, I wanted to learn more about your story. And you mentioned you moved 14 different times uh, growing up, which probably prepared you to move one more time different continents. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So growing up, I moved a lot, more than 10 times. And it was like for different reasons. My parents' job, my parents got divorced, so I had to move and like a bunch of stuff. And I remember that on a few periods of time, like a few moves, I was very anxious about it because I planned my life and then gone. Like, and it was a few times it was like out of the blue, like I wasn't prepared for it. But I think that was great because I had to like introduce myself so many times and I had to like start over so many times that it kind of make it easy now. Because when I got here, like first week, I went to church and I was like, find hiring. I was like, okay, I'm Raquel. I just moved. Like, I want this. Like, I need a group. Like, and it was easy for me because when I was a child, I was like so shy. I'm still shy, but I was like so shy and I couldn't do anything, talk to anyone. And now that I had to do this like a billion times, it's easier now and I adjust easier. And it just make me more calm. It just make me understand people more because I've like known a lot of people, different people from different backgrounds. So I think it was a struggle at first, but it was something for the good because now I think I can handle stuff better. And it definitely prepared to be here because I just put myself out there more than I would do it if I didn't have this experience. And even though I never moved without anyone from my family before, uh, it definitely prepared me. So it's in the details. Like your whole life is guiding you to somewhere, and everything. Like even the struggles, because it was a struggle. I remember struggling about it, about moving, and now it's this great thing. Like good that I moved, good that I met this incredible people like all over the place, and good that because that taught me and that made me harder to move here.
I was thinking about this yesterday or a couple days ago, and I think the more reps you get in anything, the more you just do something, the more comfortable you get, and that bar just continues to rise. Like take me, like me doing this podcast, like by the 15th time, by the 100th time, you just get so much more comfortable doing it. Public speaking, it's literally anything that you do, going to the gym, anything that you have a fear about. I think eventually you're going to look back and be like, once you've done it enough times, you look back and realize like I was scared about that. Like that seems so uh it's just not scary anymore. And that bar continues to raise. But I also wanted to ask you about how did you get acclimated with the people around you, like make friends, all this stuff. I imagine, like, I'm just picturing you getting dropped into Connecticut and being like, all right, well, I know no one and I'm just here. Like, how did you make friends, find a community, all that stuff?
So my first month here, I was scared of being alone forever here. Um, and so I just like put myself out there. I remember going to Vox, and it was crazy because again, like trying to plan everything when I was still in Brazil, I put my new address from here, and I was like churches near me, and I found vlogs in other churches, and I was just like following the Instagram and like looking. Um, But then my first week here, I got to Vox, and then I put myself out there, I introduced myself, and you gotta be intentional, I guess, into just because you're not gonna meet someone out of the blue if you don't open up. You're not gonna build a new life if you don't put effort into it. So I was very intentional into like getting to know people and to getting to go deeper with people, and that might be look different for everyone, but just like find something that you like. For me, it was church. I always had a community growing up, so I was like, I need this, and that was my first start. And for other people, might be the gym or anything. It's gonna look different. But I remember that I was scared. I was like, oh man, like I had so many friends back home, and now I have no one, and no family, no one, and it was sad at first, but it didn't last forever because I was very intentional into putting myself out there. And you're gonna find your people. Like anywhere in the world that you go, I promise you're gonna find your people. It's just a matter of like speaking and like showing you're there. Um, and yeah, you can be shy.
Yeah, and on that too, I mean, what was that first day, like that first week of being here? What was that like? Because I would be in a blender. I'd be like, what am I doing here? Quick interruption. If you're enjoying this episode, I would love if you shared it with someone else. Honestly, that's the only real way that I want Quarter Life Clarity to grow is word of mouth. It's people helping people. It's you saying, this is really helping me and I found it valuable. And I think it's worthy of sharing it with someone else that I love in hopes of it having the same effect on them, of it helping them. Because that's really what this is all about. It's how can we kind of all kind of link arms and band together and get this clarity, collectively. It's not about one person, it's about all of us. And so if that's you, if you're listening, if maybe by the end of this episode you're like, yeah, this really hit home with me and I want to share it with someone, like I just ask that you do take a second to actually do that. And at the same time, if you haven't had that effect, if you don't think it's worthy of sharing with someone, then don't do it. But seriously, appreciate you being here. Appreciate you supporting Quarter Life Clarity, taking the time to listen, and enjoy the rest of the episode.
So my first day here, actually, I lived my worst fear. I think the worst fear of everyone who is moving is losing someone you love. And on my first day here, my grandpa died. And I remember I woke up like so happy and I went to like call my dad, and then no one was picking up, and I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, why is people not answering me? And then my dad called me, and he didn't know if he should tell me what happened because he was scared that I was gonna just pack my things again. I didn't even unpack. It was my first day, but just like grab my all my stuff and leave. And then he told me, and it was such. I was like so happy, and then I was like, oh my god, like that hug that I gave to my grandpa before I left was my last, and I didn't know about it. And it was definitely hard at first, and especially knowing that my family was struggling and I was not there. But also, I felt this peace, and I could see the Lord taking care of me because if it happened on the week before, or like when I was planning to come, I wouldn't come. So it was so the Lord into like you get to say goodbye. You get to like, even though I didn't know that it was goodbye, but you get to say goodbye and you get to leave and do what I told you to do. So after that, I was like, okay, the hardest part I already lived on my first day, and I waited to have a meltdown. I have this friend who moved here, and I remember as soon as she got here, I called her like FaceTime, and I was like so happy, and she was like sobbing. You know those videos that you call someone in a mood and she's like a different mood, and she was sobbing and like I want to go home like right now. And for her, like it hits her so quickly that she was away and like away from everything she knew. But for me, I waited for weeks to that to happen, to the meltdown to hit me, and it didn't came. Oh, sorry, but it didn't came. I didn't had this moment of, I think Months later, I was like, oh my God, I'm really away. Like, and I remember having this, like, just driving around and be like, I don't know anything here. Like, any streets, like, any places, anyone. And it's kind of scary, but it's also like, oh, I don't know anything. So, like, I have all this to explore. But I remember it hits me. And even though it was worth it, I never regret it, like, not even for a second. Uh, and yeah, that was my first chaos day and week here.
Yeah. No, that's wild. And I think it's also, like we said earlier, it's you could very easily in that moment think like, what the hell, God? Like, this is another obstacle. Like, this is a sign that I should not be here, and just, yeah, go the other way. I think it's important to, I mean, just think in that moment of really like the reality, because you could have not looked at it the way that you did of, yeah, you know what, I did get a chance to say goodbye, even though I didn't know, but it was still like a goodbye, like, because I was leaving. And so I think that's important, kind of just like stick it out like you did. And I think another thing, as you were talking there, of just being in this new place is scary, but yeah, to your point, it's like an opportunity to recreate yourself. Like, you could be whoever you want to be. You can, I think that's where like the pro of leaving, like you had on your list, before you left, was like, yeah, personal growth. Like, I can be whoever I want to be. And by the way, I'm going to be pretty much on my own, so I'm going to be forced to. Can you talk to me a little bit more about that, of how you, I guess, really grew as a person through all of this?
Um, I think I grow so much that my family wouldn't recognize me now, which is crazy because like a year and a half and I'm
Yeah.
totally different. But I was very insecure when I was in Brazil. I was very like asking everyone if I should make this decision because I couldn't make on my own. And I couldn't do anything on my own. Like, I want to watch a movie. If no one can go, I'm not going. Like, in here, I had to put myself out there because I only have me to count on. So all the big problems I had to solve, all the like fun stuff that I want to do, my friends can do it. Like, I'm gonna sit and not do it. No, I would do it. And so I think I just put myself out there and to try new things and to like pushing my limits, and that made me see myself in a whole different level. And also like I experienced the Lord so much as a father on a way that I never in my life experienced before. And I grew up Christian, so that was like a big mark in my relationship with God because I knew that God was my father. Like I read my Bible and I know like the Lord is my father, but I experienced that, like my heart experienced that. And because I was all alone, so I had to depend on the Lord, and my relationship grew. And all the times that I was sad, I could relate on the Lord, and to see the Lord providing, to see the Lord not just providing financially, but providing with people, providing with opportunities, and providing with everything I needed because the Lord knows what we need. And even before we say it, He knows, and He's gonna provide. And especially if He calls you to do something, He's gonna be there. And I experienced that like so deeply. And it was times that I even remember one day, because in Brazil I was very scared of driving. My state is like known by the hills and the mountains, so it's like pure chaos. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to drive that much. But when I got here, so I never like in Brazil drive late at night. And one day I was coming home here and it was like 3 in the morning and I was driving all by myself. And it just hit me like, oh my God, I would never do this back home, like ever. But I felt like so much peace and so much joy in that moment because I was like, I'm sure that the Lord is here with me right now. And I'm sure that I'm going to get home safe. And that was so crazy for me because it was something that I would never do like in my life, uh, like 2 years ago. And now it's like something normal for me. and I grew so much, and my identity in Christ was so like firm and assured, because I had to the time to think about it. I had to the space to look at my life, what it looks like, and to change it and to like see who I was and improve myself. And sometimes you need this space from the situation so you can see like clearly. And there was a lot of stuff that I lived, especially in my uh, last year in Brazil, because it was like so anxious and like it was a lot happening at the same time. And I had time to like process that and to, oh, what happened, and like pinpoint like everything. And it was just a blast. And even though I struggle with a lot of stuff, like I struggle with like sometimes I'm like, oh my god, it hits me like I'm so far away. Uh, but again, like it just I grew so much, and that's something that it's worth it. It's 100% worth it.
Yeah, no, I think that's 100% true. I mean, I think you have to put yourself out there. It's just the cliche of you have to be uncomfortable to grow. Like that's literally it. And so, I think I don't know. I feel. I mean, going back to the original stat, like 72% of people said it changed their perspective for the better. You know, and I think really what it's like overcoming that fear, all those fears, and you know, it's like where I'm at right now is good enough. But I kind of thought about that myself. Of, well, do I just want good enough? No. Okay. Well, then, what do you have to do to not settle, to not have that regret? And just yeah, like that again. It's all also tied to that, like what God's put on your heart. For me, at least, that's what it was, and chasing it. And another thing, because I'm just genuinely curious about this whole thing. What was it like being so far from your family and friends, and specifically, like what did that feel like? Because I think that's another thing that's probably a huge obstacle with people that are thinking about moving, going somewhere else away from home. It's like, well, everybody that I know, all my friends are here. Like that sucks. Like that's gonna be hard. Was that really hard?
It was. It is actually
Yeah.
very hard. I'm a very like attached to the people in my life. So my family is like everything to me. I'm very attached. And to my friends too. I had friends that I grew up like that I know for like 15 years that I grew up with, and that is so precious. But also, uh, it was hard, and it is hard for me to balance two lives because I have a life going on here that I gotta be intentional, that I gotta put effort into it. But I also got a life in Brazil, like 2 hours. I think it's like 2 hours different. Um, that I also gotta balance it. That I also gotta be present, and it is a struggle. But also, I was very scared of like losing time with my family. I have a niece. She is 2 year old, and I was so scared. And I remember like just having conversation with my sister and just sobbing like she's gonna forget about me and all that. And now she calls me and she's like so happy to see me. She remembers and everything. And my family, they were great because they assure me all the time like you have a place to go back to. You have a family who's gonna be here for you forever. Like no matter where you are, we love you and we're gonna stay here. Um, and of course that it's hard, but also I gained so many people here, that so many relationships that I wanna get in touch for the rest of my life. Like I met so many precious people that I'm like, it's worth it. Like it's worth it uh, I think it's the price you pay to love someone. It's uh, the fear of missing out and just like being sad and missing them. It's the price you pay, but it's a price that it's so worth it. Because now like my heart is in two places, and I have so many people that I treasure so much, and that's a privilege that I have so many people that I love and that I have with me. So it's just a way to look at it. I think if we focus on all the struggles and all the difficulties, we're not gonna make it because of course I'm losing time with my family, but also I'm like building all these other relationships that are so precious, that I'm learning so much and giving them so much. So it's worth it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know that you can always go back. Like even like on that first week, month, couple months, like you can always go back. Like there's no situation that you can't get out of. You could quit you could quit every job. You could maybe you'll lose money on a lease or something, but you know what I mean? Like it's not I think we overcomplicate or we think certain decisions are final and they're not reversible when I think practically a lot of decisions are reversible when you really sit down and think about it. Like if this doesn't work out, then you know what's kind of like the plan B. And I don't like having plan Bs in like anything, but I think at least thinking through that potential way out that you can check down to uh can is another good way to kind of get rid of that fear.
Yeah, for me, I had a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. Like I had all these different plans, but yeah, it's also like you have, especially your family, like you always gonna have them, and it's like they're gonna love you forever, no matter what. So if they're true, and even if your friends, your friends, if they're true to you, like they gonna stick. And even though it's difficult because you got all this like time things and that you have to balance it out, it's still worth it, and you gain so much. And I have people in my life now that I'm like, oh my god, how did I not knew this person before? It's like so many special people that I want to keep. So it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it reminds me too of just the fact that like when God puts something on our heart, there is a choice to be made. It's like it's kind of like a free will almost conversation of uh well, like God will just make it happen. And that's not really entirely true. Like God will put something on your heart. He'll open a door, but you have to walk through it. And I think
Exactly.
that's really important because and this is just your faith journey with everything, even just the very beginning of like God's going to open doors for you to accept him and wake you up to who he actually is and that's step 1, but then there is a choice. There is a choice that you have to make to accept that and to walk through that door. And I think that's just another important thing. Like you could have very easily been like, you know what, cool, God, but I'm gonna stay in Brazil because that's comfortable and like there's a lot of good stuff happening here. You know, I don't need to do this. I didn't have to move. I didn't have to quit my job. I could have just been like, you know what, this is good enough. And I think I say that because I think plenty of people could be there, you know, waiting for this perfect moment to make this life altering decision. And I've been there. I was there for years. And it's never going to be perfect. The situation, the circumstance is never going to be exactly what you want it to be. And I think God does that on purpose because to fill in that gap of, you know, like I said earlier, say I'm 60% sure this is the right thing. I want it to be 100, but I think the trust that we have to have in God and who he is, that is that extra 40% to get me to that 100.
I agree. There's no perfect time to do it. And if we're waiting for the perfect time, we're never going to do it. And also, I feel like we are so focused on ourselves and so focused on our own lives. And, oh my God, I want this and I want that. And we forget to look at the big picture. Like, our lives is not just about ourselves, you know? Like, there's a bigger purpose and there's a bigger picture that we're not looking into it. And I think we just put so much time like looking at ourselves, and that's kind of the problem. Like maybe a lot of our anxiety and our fears, it comes to this place because we are so focused on ourselves, and you are not made to be focused on yourself. Like of course life is gonna be miserable if you just keep looking to the things you gotta accomplish, and it's always gonna have you always gonna have something else to accomplish and someplace else to go. And if you focus just on that, like life sucks, honestly. Like if life is just about ourselves, what a waste, honestly. So what a good thing that Jesus have a bigger purpose, and that our lives is not just about ourselves. It's about like making him known, and just like building these relationships and getting to know Christ, and just like it's so special. The Bible says in Psalms, I don't know which verse, but says that all of our days have been written by the Lord. And this is so precious that, like, even if I screw it up, like all my days have been written by the Lord. Like the Lord have a plan for each one of us, and it's bigger than, oh my God, I gotta go to this college and I gotta focus on this career because then I'm gonna have money to buy this big house. Like this is like so simple. I know it that it's important. Like of course we are in Earth, so we need like all the stuff. We need money. We need a house. We need the relationships. But it's also like such like just a piece of everything that the world is, and it's just I feel like sometimes we need to just take a step back and let ourselves see from a different angle. And because of course that if you focus just on yourself, life is gonna be miserable, honestly.
No, that's great. And it reminds me, I heard the other day, another guy that I was with mentioned, like the joy, I forget what he was saying, but it was like the joy that we have in Christ is like the ocean. And so often we're sitting on the sand making like a mud castle, and the mud castle is like my business, it's this relationship, it's this hobby, it's this thing that I do, when like we get so focused on that, thinking that that's like that little like mud castle like that we're making in the sand is everything, when if we just turned and like went that way and looked at the ocean, there's so much more joy. Like we miss the mark, I think, so often, like Christians, like myself, all the time, where you get so wrapped up in these good things, these worldly things, the relationship, the career, the money, the stuff. But it's like making it the ultimate thing is destructive. And this goes back to like what we talked about a few weeks ago, like with identity. It's like, where is your identity? And, what is it rooted in? And it's always a struggle. It's always hard. It's not, you're never perfect in, all right, my identity is rooted in Christ. Like I'm perfect with that always. Like it's not the case. It's hard. But yeah, I think, there's the disciplines and just reverting back to who God is, and like he will always direct your steps, and you can't screw it up, right? To your point about God's plan, it's so intricate. Like we try and put God in a box and be like, this is who you are, like not like this is who you are, but like you're so limited, and that's just so not true. Like there's nothing that you can do to screw up God's plan. And I think that makes me feel better, at least, because we screw up all the time, we sin, we get it wrong, we make decisions that aren't perfect, and God will make a way where there is no way. Like that's, if you could pick one superpower that God has, and there's a million of them, but it's the fact that he does turn something out of nothing. He turns the bad into something good. Like that's his specialty. And so no matter what you do, like he'll make a way where there might not be a way, and take care of like something that you think you just made this awful decision. You moved to a different country, you moved to a different state, you started this thing, it's not working. Like again, it's the trust in God, and he will direct your steps.
Exactly.
Yeah, and kind of to wrap this whole conversation up, and thank you for just sharing your story and your insights and all this stuff. What would you say to someone who's afraid to take the leap like you did, whether that's career, moving, their plan in life, their path, anything, just taking any kind of big risk. What would you say to that person that's afraid to do that?
Yeah, I think for me is not waiting until you're sure and not waiting until for the perfect timing because that don't exist. And just rely on your faith and just rely on what you heard from the Lord and just trust that whatever you have heavy on your heart is the Lord placing it there. And I feel like the Lord is gonna give us so many opportunities to go deeper with Him in our 20s. And those decisions are a big part of it. Like, you're gonna learn about the Lord so deeply and learn about yourself in response so deeply if you choose to follow. And if you just stay still, you're not gonna grow in your life, even though you have this plan. It's not gonna look great because you just didn't develop and you just didn't like achieve the best version of yourself. And you're only gonna do it if you do it. Like, so do it afraid because I was afraid. Like, everyone's afraid, and but it's so worth it. And just rely on the Lord. Just take your 20s to really learn about the Lord because then your faith is gonna be so secure and so rooted that you're not gonna be like so afraid anymore of trying new things because you know like where the Lord is gonna provide and what you heard. So just take time in your 20s to get to know the Lord. Of course, it's a thing for your whole life, but I feel like especially in your 20s, we deal with so much that it's especially for us to know the Lord in a deeper level and to understand ourselves in response. So just do it afraid and don't wait.
What would you recommend for people that don't know who God is? What would you tell them like to do, you know?
I feel like if you trust only in yourself, you're not gonna go anywhere because the base of everything is in Christ. So the first thing is get to know the Lord. You know, He have a purpose. He have a way, and our life is never gonna make sense without Him. Even though you think you have everything together, you don't because you're missing like the big purpose of all of it. So just get to know the Lord. I feel like if you only do one thing in your life, it's like get to know the Lord because then you're gonna know all the other stuff and you're gonna learn all the other stuff you need to learn. But I don't think you can make sense of your life if you're just looking at yourself and if you're just basing on yourself, like your thoughts, and it's not gonna make sense. And I feel like that's why our society is so depressed and so anxious. And like our society, it's like our generations is the most depressed and anxious society of all. Like, and it is a lot about that. It's about a lot about the pressure we put on ourselves that we shouldn't put. Like, because when you take a step back and what is the Lord actually telling me to do? We do a lot of stuff that He didn't even ask, and that's burdens that we're carrying. And of course, you're gonna be anxious. Of course, you're gonna be depressed. And for me, who dealt with anxiety and had to treat it like in therapy and like even medication, for me, it's just like to look at the Lord, and that brings so much peace and so much clarity. So that makes life make sense because otherwise you're just running to get this and running to get this and it never ends. And of course that the pressure is like enormous. You're not gonna survive that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, when you do, you as a result he'll show you who you are. I mean, I mentioned in the identity episode, I thought it was pretty good. Like like our identity is like a house, and when our identity is rooted in who God is at the foundation of that house, he'll show us what the other rooms look like, and the other rooms of that house of who we are is like our true personality, our strengths, our weaknesses, our career, our callings, our purpose. Like everything else falls more in line when the foundation is right. And I think too, like just some more tangible ways to learn about who God is, just from my own experience. Uh, for me, it started with sermons, listening to sermons. I'm a, I don't know, like I just like to listen to things. I'm not a huge reader. So I was like, I found Rick Warren sermons were like the first thing that I like grabbed onto. The church that Raquel and I go to is called Vox Church, as she mentioned. All the sermons are on YouTube. Uh, every pastor that speaks every week is phenomenal, especially the lead pastor, Justin. Like, really good way of just making this whole thing make sense. Because Christianity, like, you could think about it, or especially if you, I grew up Catholic, so I'm biased, but for me, it was like all these rules. There was no relationship. It was just all this stuff that you have to like earn your way to God. And that's just not, that's how I felt it was. And that's just not, that's not true. And so, there's sermons out there. There's literally go on YouTube and type in Vox Church sermon and look for a title that catches your eye. But yeah, reading the Bible obviously is the best way to learn about who God is. I would say start with Matthew in the New Testament. That's where Jesus comes in. Uh, Obviously praying, like anyone can talk to God. Like you don't have to clean yourself up. You don't have to be perfect. It's just like there's no right way to pray. You literally just talk to him like you're talking to a best friend. Like that's what I like to say. Um, any other things come to mind in terms of like real tangible ways to just know God better?
Yeah, I feel like you can get in touch with people who is like living in faith. That helps a lot because then you can like ask questions and you can get like personal. I feel like definitely get into your Bible, and the Bible apps now are great because they have like small devotionals that you can do and plans that you can follow, and you have like a guidance. So it's great. Also, I feel like worship music because then you're feeding yourself with that, and it's gonna stick to your brain, into your heart, and you're gonna learn more about the Lord. And yeah, it's just the basics. Go to the basics because that works. But when you talk about identity, I remember that passage that Jesus talking to Peter, and he say, "Peter, who am I?" And then Peter answers, and then he asks again, "Peter, who am I?" And then when Peter answers who the Lord is, then Jesus says to him, "And you are Peter, and on you like I'm gonna like root my church." I gotta find it. Oh, I don't have my phone, but
Oh, do
yeah.
you want me to look it up?
Yeah, I think.
All right, I think this is it, and I can change the translation if you want. But can you see that?
Yeah, who do you say that I am? And then Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And then Jesus replied, "And I tell you, Peter, on this rock I will build my church." Um, so it's so great because I feel like that's our journey to find our identity. Like when we look to the Lord first and we know who He is, then He's gonna reveal who we are. Like it happens to Peter. So I feel like getting to know the Lord in your 20s is the best thing you can do because when you get to know the Lord, you're gonna find yourself too, and you're gonna find like what you have to do, and you're gonna make your life make sense. And I don't know how to do life any other way because for me, life without Christ didn't have any meaning.
Yeah, not to mention just the whole overcoming struggles and fears things, like a lot of what we talked about. I, for me, there is no way. I don't think. I mean, you can play the game and say that like, all right, well, you don't know that there's no way, but I'm pretty sure if I didn't have a relationship with God, like I wouldn't have made that crazy jump to quit my job that I got my degree in and financially take such a huge risk and do all these seemingly to most people like crazy things. But yeah, it's that it goes back to that piece. It goes back to, well, like you said earlier, that personal relationship with God, like he told this to you and only you for a reason. Like you have to then make the choice to trust in that and then take the action to follow it. And to and same thing for you, like of taking the actual jump to moving, you know, and even still, I mean, I feel it. I think about it often. I mean, there's been a lot of days in the past, coming up on 3 years since I made that move to like a little voice crack there, to to leave, you know, the world and the life that I thought I knew. And if I didn't have a relationship with God, like I would have quit by now. Again, I don't know that for certain, but there's a lot of days where you just want to not do this and want to quit and want to give up. But then, like I said earlier, you go back to that moment of me sitting at the lake and that like word and that uh, peace and that feeling, all that stuff that God kind of gave me. And then I followed it. And now it's like here. And it's like, you know, you have those days where it's like, did I screw it up? Like, am I so wrong? Am I destroying the plan that I think God's got for me? Like, it feels like that sometimes when I look at the day to day, but when I zoom out and trust in who he is, then it's like, all right, well, and what helps me is also you think about other people that have gone through similar things, similar challenges that inspire me. And it's like, all right, well, you're just in the middle of a struggle. You're in the middle of a hard time. You're in the middle of not getting there. And that's the hardest place to be. And again, that's where the trusting in God, turning to your Bible, turning to who God is, I at least have to rely on that because everything else really doesn't give me that same sense of foundation and like I'm okay. Like nothing else gives me that same sense of peace.
Yeah, for me it's the same.
Any any closing thoughts? Any final words of wisdom for people that are scared to do anything? And
No, I would just say, just do it.
yeah.
Just do it, and I promise you won't regret it. Even if it doesn't work out, and at least you did it, and you're not gonna have that on your mind. Like, should I've done this? And yeah, you'll learn. You'll learn so much, and
Yeah.
it's worth it.
And the goal, I wanted to mention this earlier. I'm glad I remembered. The goal of life to me is like to become that ultimate version of you. You know, we would say become most like Jesus. And you can't do that without like evolving and being uncomfortable to then evolve to get to that next version of you. And so it is uncomfortable, but and that leads to regret also of future casting. Well, when I'm 90, I don't want to think about all the things that I wish I could have done. All that stuff, like no one's going to care also. I think about this plenty, like if you're sitting next to your best friend when you're 90 and you're talking about the regret of all these things that you wish you should have done, you could have done, they're not even going to care. And I think that's true. Like they'll care, but they're not going to, you're the only one that has to live with that. And I think that's also another thing that's helped me be risky and take these chances that don't really make sense to others but make sense to me. Like you'd also like you don't always have to explain yourself either. And it's just it's following God. Like that's what God calls us to do. That's why it's not always easy to be a Christian because God will call you into something and it's like, "What, man? Like that's not right." But then you follow it and I think over time he'll show you that his plans are far greater than anything that you could think for yourself. I think that's another good reminder.